I'm going to try to implement a slider. I'm trying to build the physics components. I think I'm going to change the layouts a little bit. And I decided to... I've been trying and learning based on videos, and I think it's going to be better if I build the like one part at a time. So build the slider first, then put it on a component. Then use that component to build another component that has all the settings, and then combine that with the other parts. But I think I'm gonna change because I realized that it's probably better to put the label on top of the range here because it takes less space. And the idea that I have now, that I just remembered doing this, is that the only reason why I put here the components because it was easier, but my idea was to eventually change this to be here. So that's what I'm going to try to do. But I'm realizing now that it's gonna be much much harder than I thought, and it's gonna be a pain in the ass to do this. So yeah, I'm gonna spend some time today trying to see if I can do this. I already have the beginning here, but there's a bunch of problems that I'm not really sure how I'm gonna solve. And yeah. I did the beginning of this, watching this video here from this person. So the annoying thing here is like the size of the, like he does on GDScript to change the value, and he's doing on the left. And the annoying thing is that when you change the size of this, it changes the width here. So I'm trying to figure out, and apparently there isn't a way to. I kind of already. I had the feeling that it was gonna be like this because of the editor, the way that the editor node works. I remember seeing a bunch of enums that determine. I didn't know, obviously, for what is the purpose of the enums, but I kind of had the idea that it was just to set the layout. So I think based on the way that they do things, they force you to put the elements at in specific ways based on the enums. So it's basically based on the control here, I think. That you have the horizontal and the vertical, and then you have to use these boxes to set things. And I really don't like this, to be honest, because like it's the same problem, it's the same thing that I was thinking about on when I did the global signals. And the trade-off is that if you use enums, you're gonna have less flexibility, and you're gonna have higher performance because you're using integers. So if you want more flexibility, then you have to use a string. And the problem with this stuff is that I think usually UI is gonna make a lot more sense to allow flexibility. It's just like on the browser where you have Flexbox and I forgot the name of the other one. I think it's grid something, but I forgot how it is. But it's basically two versions of how to set everything up. So here, basically, as far as I understand now, based on this, you have to add these V boxes and H boxes, and we have to structure the tree, a hierarchy, in a way that allows you to set the elements in a specific way. And the annoying thing is that you can only change the width and height based on the V box and the H box, and you have to select like fixed ways to do things, I think, which is basically based on these values here. So because of that, I'm not really sure how I'm gonna do this. And it's gonna be much more complicated. That's kind of the problem. Because, so the idea that I have now, and what I'm trying to do is to create the simple tree here for one slider. to put all the stuff on a custom component and then use the custom component. But eventually what I want to do is something similar to the way that they do here with the file system. So it has to change the size based on these movements here. And I have to think about how I'm gonna make these elements. So there's a bunch of things to think about because obviously I want to do the functionality from C++, not GDScript. So trying to clarify first how to clarify the layout first, then after I clarify the layouts, how this is going to be translated into the codes, which is another thing that's kind of complicated. What do you mean? Why do you need 3 browsers? So I think you can't put you can't set maximum values. That's kind of the thing that is annoying. So how I'm gonna do this? I think yeah, but the problem is like the value is an issue because ideally I will have something that also remember seeing on some of the tutorials that there is a way to like customize the values so that it always you can go like forever basically, either decrease or increase. I think it's easier probably in the beginning to set a minimum value. So the biggest problem is this one, I think. So I put minus 90,000 here. Maybe I can just assume that it's gonna be 5 digits from here. Minus 90,000. So maybe I can assume that this is gonna be the highest thing. And I can do it like this. And the other thing I'm contemplating is whether or not to put another value. I think it's probably better. So maybe I think it's Control D to copy. Yeah. Oh, the other thing that I realized is that I think it's gonna be a lot easier to do the stuff that I'm thinking about doing because basically, as far as I understand now, the way that it's gonna save the scenes is based on the labels of the nodes, and that's the reason why I think some of the last streams that I did, I don't remember when, but that I was saving, and in some points it was overriding the stuff, so it wasn't adding new nodes to the scene. But the labels are different when you do it from the code than when you do it from the GUI, and it's basically just adding an integer at the end of the label name to create the other nodes because in the way that I did the code, they both have the same name. I'm setting the same name. So I think that it automatically figures out when you save the scene that they have the same name, and then it just updates. So if I want to do it from the codes, what I can do is just basically uh, never add new labels. So check first to see if the label already exists. And I'm gonna put a pattern on the string to differentiate the stuff that I do from codes and stuff that I do from ID, because that way I can add functionality based on the nodes that I add on the GUI by creating control flow. But like the tree on the code doesn't require to be aware of the tree from the GUI, if that makes sense. It only does if the tree from the code interacts with the tree from the GUI, but then you can make if-else statements to do that. The biggest problem is the history in the cache, which was what I was thinking about. But then if I do it this way where I always override, then I think it's gonna be a lot easier. Because then it's basically the same as building everything from code, I think. So I think it doesn't matter that much, probably, if I do it like this. So I could start this with the minimum value and then change the only the left one and have the right one as the maximum. I think that's probably what I'm gonna do. And this is kind of the issue because, like, in the way, if I was doing this manually, then obviously this like is not that hard. But the problem is that the label and the values are gonna depend on the code. And this is another thing that I'm thinking about a lot, which I'm probably gonna have to figure out how to implement this extension, because I realized that the scripting logic is much better if you do it on the composition way, which is more the extension way, because a lot of the times what I want to do is just to implement different functionality on a node that already exists. And I think that makes a lot more sense. And if every time that I want to implement some functionality for that node, I have to extend the node, inherit from, create another class, inherit from that node to put other functionality, it just doesn't scale well. Because then for each thing, like creating functions is much better because then you can use the same functions for multiple different instances. So here I think is the same thing that is kind of problematic. So I'm not really sure how to go or how to think about this. Because I think I can't really put on the constructor if I create a custom node. Maybe I can, because uh, maybe I'll search for in the code some nodes that accept values on the constructor, because the values need to be based on the data that I pass. How I'm gonna do this? If no, I guess I need to. Maybe I don't need to. I can make it based on the member variables of the global physics. And I guess I can put default values. So I'm gonna create a custom components. The default values are gonna be 0 and 1, I think. So the thing that I'm thinking about, like another reason why it's gonna be very annoying is because Godot uses this editor doc manager, and that's how they split everything. So they create these other classes, and then they create, they don't build everything straight from the constructor. They have an editor file system doc, which is the one that so I was thinking about using, I am probably gonna try to use, or just copy the classes that they use, but obviously I'm gonna have to change a bunch of things. Because the functionality that I want is very similar to this one. So it's almost the same thing. But I'm just gonna change some stuff, I think. So the problem is that they don't build this from the constructor of this class or directly from the editor node. They don't add as a child. They use this editor doc system to separate everything, which makes it a lot harder to understand what is going on. And they use this enum here to determine where the thing is gonna be. So here's the name of the docs, and then the class, which apparently is a singleton. So the main thing that I want is probably the file system and the ability to resize the thing. So I can see that you can resize here. I think it's probably better to focus on the creating the slider first. So first creating the slider, then after the slider puts a bunch of sliders together. And I have to think how I'm gonna divide this thing here. But I think that this part here is gonna be something. And what is kind of hard is is gonna depend, like the functionality of this depends on the options here, I think. Yeah. So when they change the options, it changes the stuff that shows there. But I guess that makes sense. So let me see. Yeah, so it changes everything. So probably from the physics to below the physics is gonna be its own thing. So it's gonna be its own class. So I create a custom one for each line here. I think that's what I'm gonna do. So custom one for each line, and yeah, then this is gonna be the class. I'm gonna have a default variable. So obviously everything is gonna be one class. Everything is gonna be, I'm gonna call, yeah, maybe problem calling customization is that's gonna be too generic, I think. So probably physics customization. But the problem is calling physics customization is and maybe just call physics customization and whatever. I think I'm gonna call it customization, then I call physics customization the one here. So I'm gonna close everything and I'm gonna start creating the classes. Things are gonna become more clear once I create the first thing. Because the main confusing part is how to, I'm probably gonna use normal signals to pass data from one component to the other. So I have to look into the normal signals that they have. Actually, I'm gonna keep the pattern for the thing. The other thing that I learned is that you should put everything as a child of canvas layer so that it doesn't move with the camera. So you put everything related to the game or whatever application you're building on side. Then you put the GUI elements inside of the canvas layer. Yeah, so it's probably gonna inherit from this VBox container. So I inherit from the VBox container, and then inside of the constructor, I'm going to build the classes, probably make member variables. Let me see the editor notes. I need to remember which one. There are some here that's they are member variables. Yeah, so that's how they do it. So you declare here. So just a node. Yeah, I think that's probably the best way then. So just inherit from node. I don't know what they are including to uh, make to inherit from nodes if they are not declaring here for declaring. So I'm basically just gonna do the same structure that I have here. The most annoying thing is the expansion. So another thing that I have to clarify, I don't need to make the way that I'm gonna update the data is gonna be from the main one. So I think I don't need to. because this is gonna come from like the minimum and maximum range are gonna come from the class already, I think. So it already has default values. So I'm gonna set the label with the value. Yeah, this is the part I have to think about. So first there is the structure. I'm gonna try to do it without this thing here, just scene main. I guess this is the problem here. And maybe on this one I need to include. Let me leave like this and whatever. So I'll try like this. Mm. Or just include directly. So I'm thinking about how I'm gonna structure this. The most annoying thing is the label size here. So I guess what I can do is just expand. Oh, but that's the same thing. I guess it doesn't matter that much. So obviously I'm just gonna put the same structure there, just create the classes inside of the constructor. Then I'm gonna set the values of the classes in the same way that it is set here. So to do that, you can just read there, I think. So basically here is just a class and the member variables here. So I already have like a good idea in my mind of how to do it, but like the annoying thing is the structure, because the problem is that this is gonna be inside of a bigger thing. So each one of these is gonna be parts. I'm gonna stack them up together. And it's kind of the issue because maybe I can create several of them to see how it's gonna work. Or I can always put the label on the beginning there, on the left. Maybe this is better. It doesn't look very. What I would want you to do is just adjust in the same way you can on the front end, on the browser. You can just adjust the direction based on the, like you can make small adjustments based on the margin or on the pixels basically. But here, I think you can do it if the node is outside of the VBox, then you can do it. But if it's inside you can't, because it's determined by the VBox. So I think that usually is on the control node and the transform here. But it doesn't allow you to set here because it's a child of the thing, of the VBox. So if I put outside, then maybe it works, but then I think it's kind of annoying because like this is what I mean is that and if in order to fix this, it's gonna be very annoying because then I have to change everything. And they probably did it this way because it's complicated with the like amount of aspect ratios you can have in different screens and stuff like that. It's very annoying. So I'm not really sure what to do. I guess in the tutorial there he uses a grid container, I think. You can use a margin container as well. So maybe if I put this inside of a margin container. I think this looks better, so it's probably better to leave it like this. And then I can change the, I have to see, so I'm trying to think about what is the right questions here. Ideally, the more it increases here, like I think this is the problem because the label is centered based on the VBox. So ideally it would stay in the middle of the range, I think. How do I calculate this? Guess what I can do is just based on the, so every time that I set the tax, because obviously it's going to be from code, so the tax is going to be based on the value of the range. the label is based on the value of the range. So I think every time that, so everything's gonna happen on the slider, I think. So when you change the value of the slider, I set the text, and then I increase the, if the pixel is bigger, I increase the size of the label, or yeah. But the problem is that I'm not gonna be able to do this because I think it's fixed there. So I increase the size of the VBox, but it's, yeah, I think it doesn't matter. If I do this left. And this is vertical. Hmm. And the other thing that changes is obviously the size of this stuff here changes the thing. The question is, so maybe if I put a minimum, is I think you can put, I'm pretty sure you can put minimum sizes here. So maybe it has to be both here and on the other one. And maybe this is the way. So yeah, there we go. So all I have to do is put the minimum size here. So let me think about this. Because then the problem is this one. So the question is how to center the thing. But I guess I can do it here maybe. Maybe instead of an H box, I can use a grid and then put 3. I'm gonna try that. So what I'm trying to do is put the slider on the middle. Not sure if there's a way to do this. Yo, thanks, man. Or woman, whatever you are. I think this is another problem that makes this more annoying is that they changed from Godot 3 point whatever to Godot 4 point something. Like, all the tutorials show flags on the control node, but they changed the way that it works. So now I think that the control node doesn't have these flags, but it's probably pretty much the same thing. It's just changing it's just changing the values that you change. I think that's the equivalent to flags now is just the layouts there. So it's just these values here. Oh, nice. No, no worries. I think it might be a problem because of this thing here. But this is vertical, so shouldn't matter. There we go. But now the layout or the label is off. So let me think on this. So all I have to do. So the problem is that I want, like, it needs to have the same. You need to have a separation between the two different sides, so that the limit of the number doesn't make it expand or contract. If that makes sense. So it always stays on the same size, same place, and it's symmetrical. That's what I'm trying to make it happen. And this is not very good. So maybe if I put a minimum size on the label. Still 100. But it's so if I can put this on the end there. Yeah. Someone is asking if I want fixed dimensions and centered all the time, at all time. So basically, I'm trying to like make it symmetrical, so that regardless of because the labels are gonna change value as I change the slider range. I think that the left one is always gonna be fixed, uh, but it's gonna depend on what because this is gonna be used for several different things. So the value in the end is gonna depend on the thing that the range is for. So the number can expand or contract depending on what kind of elements the range is referring to. And the value on the left is gonna change depending on the value of the slider. Then I want to make it so that the range doesn't change position depending on the value. So that's kind of the annoying thing. Because then I imagine that if I change the value of the slider, is gonna change the value of the number, which is gonna make the slider move, and then it's gonna be very annoying to change the thing. And it's really annoying now because I don't understand very well like how to think about this, because I never did anything with the UI on Godot, just on the front end on the browser. So I have to change the way that I'm thinking about things and think about what is possible to do here. Yeah, it depends on the kind of a challenge. To be honest, I really don't like this. Like I'm just trying to get over these parts. So like I hate UI stuff. Like maybe I will rethink like I have to think about a different way, or just put one value. I think probably putting one value is easier. Yeah, I think I'm just gonna do that. So I'm gonna put only one value, and then I'm gonna make it so the value is just gonna reflect the thing. I think that's a lot easier than thinking about this stuff. Because the big issue here is that is the way that they design Godot. That's what's kind of annoying me. Because like, obviously it's already good because they did all this stuff, but like it's not good for what I'm thinking about and the way that I'm thinking about building things. So that's the kind of thing that I'm contemplating now, is that. But I think it's not that big of a deal because just the like it's just minor details. It doesn't matter that much, I think. But yeah. I don't know what you mean inheritance properties. Like the issue is basically, so I'm gonna put it's already. Hmm. So I think the problem is on the other one. The question is how do I make it? Yeah, there we go. Yeah. So I think this way is probably a lot easier, and then I just put this stuff on the left there. And then I don't have to think about this stuff. Yeah, there we go. So I'm gonna leave it like this, and then the value here is gonna change. Then I put a minimum value here. I don't know what you mean. Like the big problem here is that basically they designed the class so that I don't like the way that is structured. So basically, as far as I understand now, in order to organize things vertically, you use this VBox container. To organize them horizontally, use the HBox container. And then to add margins on stuff, use the margin container. So for each dimension you want to change things, you need to add a new node, which I think is not very good. It makes a lot more sense in my mind to put everything on the same class. That way it allows you to move things in X and Y. So yeah, it's I don't but like the thing is I think that they probably did it like this because there's some like it's very annoying to get UI because of all the aspect ratios that different monitors have and all the monitor sizes and like expanding and contracting windows. Yeah, it's just an annoying thing inherently to make it work. So I think that's probably like they encounter some challenges and then they figure out that the easiest way to do it to make it work is like this, which is fair enough, but it's very annoying. Because obviously the nature of things, you're gonna have gradients and it's gonna depend. So like, and this is just, that's the way that the browser works. So you can customize the size of margins and stuff like that. So it makes a lot more sense to be able to move around the values instead of being forced to pick like this certain amounts here. It just doesn't scale well. Because then every time you need to move something like slightly over, you need to create a new class, then put the thing as a child of the class, and then select the thing again. So, but I think it doesn't matter that much. Because the other thing is that the point of Godot is not to create UIs, it's just to create games. So it makes more sense that they don't spend too much time on this stuff. I'm just thinking about whether or not it's gonna be worth it for me to try to change these things on the source code. It's probably because of this. Hmm. No, why is it not allowing me to reduce the size? It's probably because of the control. No, already passing the control node. It's too much work because it's gonna change the whole structure of everything. Or maybe I can create another class. Yeah, it might be possible. So just instead of changing everything, just create another class and then try to merge. But in order to understand how that works, it's gonna take a lot of time, I think. Because the problem is that these classes are gonna be connected to the canvas, which is connected to shaders, and then it's gonna connect to the whole pipeline of the shaders and all this other stuff. So maybe eventually I will try to do this, but I think for now it's much better to just compromise, go with this way, and then just accept the way that it is. Yeah, I'm not really sure. Obviously, it's gonna have both things, so yeah. Well, maybe it's because of this. I'm just gonna delete this. So why can't I set this? Oh, sure. I think I was setting on the wrong place. Hmm. So this 200. Yeah, there we go. But this is kind of bad. So I think this is when you expand. No. Shrink begin. Yeah. Oh, all these libraries, they are not very good. I before I even learned Godot, I spent a bunch of time searching on this stuff, and it's like Godot has a lot more stuff. So it's the best thing that I found. I think on C++ that is open source, has a bunch of stuff. I think Godot is probably the best. All these other libraries, they would take too much time. I did from the beginning on my own, and I got to the point where I created a texture, created text, and yeah, simple camera. So I could go that route, but it would take like a lot longer time to do everything from scratch. Like Godot has a bunch of stuff, has like multiplayer connection, audio system, and they implement Vulkan as well and a bunch of different stuff. So it's much better to use Godot, I think, than these other libraries. So yeah, let me. So what I'm trying to think about here. So how do I keep this on the left there? Is shrink begin. Yeah, I think this is the problem. Yeah, there we go. So I'm gonna leave it like this, and then I put a minimum size on this thing. So like 200. 200 first. I think it's because of this that it doesn't allow me to go. That's minimum. Yeah, there we go. So I think this way is probably good. I think it's fine that it is like this. So I'm just gonna copy the structure. I'm gonna put this on codes there, and then I'm gonna see. So on the constructor, the main thing, I'm going to set the default values of this thing. So initialize each one, then set the default value, add the connect functions, and then figure out what I'm gonna do when it connects. So I think I'm just gonna change the values of, yeah, but I don't even need memory variables because the thing already is gonna have based on the thing. So Qt is used by Kitty, Pluma, and embedded Mercedes-Benz opted for it for their UI case base of GNOME. But I personally, based on what I've seen, I think is garbage. I really didn't like the way that it is structured. So, and on top of that, I think you have to pay or something. Like there's some weird stuff like that. So like I don't like the way that they structured everything. So yeah, but obviously I didn't went too much in depth. I just didn't like the stuff at all. So Godot seems a lot better. In Godot, it's not only the UI, the UI is just like a lot more stuff. So I think that it doesn't matter if this goes too much. It would be nice if I could set some maximum value. Yeah. I think Godot's better. Unreal is going to be more complicated. And is also, you have to pay, like, you can look at the source code for free, but you have to pay some GitHub stuff there. And if you build anything with Godot, you have to pay at a certain point as well. So I think that it makes a lot more sense to learn Godot first. And once you understand Godot, and if you still want, then you can look into Unreal because it's just gonna be, you're gonna have a lot more knowledge on how everything works. Then you can, like, it's gonna be easier to make the transition, I think. So let me just copy what I have here. This is a VBox. And this one is HBox. I think it's not gonna. Okay. Singiri box container. Singiri box container. Oh, no problem, man. So it already has true. I'm gonna making the order that I'm making there. Yeah, it's probably just label. Yo, thanks, man. Yeah, see you. Maybe this label is better to call something else. So option. Option label. It's gonna be the slider first, then the thing. So I'm gonna copy from the editor notes the way that they initialize stuff. And basically what I'm gonna do is just create a tree from the constructor of this thing. So so initialize the elements, put the default values. So I'm gonna have to search for how to, the functions to set everything. So I'll be right back. So I think I'm gonna put optional name instead. I'm contemplating whether or not it's better to try to make it based on the constructor. But I don't remember if I seen examples of things that are initialized, because the way they're initialized is with memnew. So I don't remember if I seen examples that initialize with the constructor. So I'm thinking, because it makes more sense, I think, to, so yeah, but then like it would change the behavior, I think, of the class. I think it's probably better just to initialize and then set the text. I wonder if I can set the string name as well. Oh, so here there is a so you do initialize. You can initialize with the label. So I'm just gonna ask ChatGPT. Let me think of this. Because this element's gonna be inside of the other one. But I also can reuse outside. Hmm. So I think it probably makes sense to. It's probably it makes sense to make part of the constructor. So I have to figure this out. So I'm just gonna put the values here. It's gonna be the name and the range of this ladder. So the minimum, maximum value, and the current value. Because the way that I'm thinking about it is gonna be like this component is gonna be a part of the another one, but I wanna be able to use on the two different instances. So like I wanna reuse the component here and on the other one. So because of that, if I or other components that I'm gonna have like this, so it doesn't make sense to initialize without the values and then set the values inside of the constructor that is going to be responsible for this thing. I think it makes more sense to initialize in the constructor of the thing itself, because then it's going to start with the values. So let me think about this. I'm gonna get from here. So you probably initialize based on this ladder. The values. I can get from the thing as well. So it's probably setters and getters. Implementation. And this is what I have to figure out, is how do they sets here. It's on the range. So the range class is the one that is going to have the values. Set mean value. Set value. Set value. I'm just gonna have to see how to. So I guess one example, I can just do it based on this one. Just see if I can find menu label. So they just specify inside of the thing. It's not that hard. So I'm gonna put default values as well. So it's gonna be equal to 0, equal to 100, equal to 50. I think that's pretty much it. So I have VBox, label, label, then HBox, slider, and label. So now I'm gonna go one by one here. Oh, also I need the, no, the name's gonna be, so I need to change this. Just put name. It has to be a label. No, it's just gonna be the string, so I'm gonna set from the label. So initialize the label, then set inside of the constructor. Just gonna copy from here. Me- I'm thinking that it's probably better to just inherit from the VBox. Because that way, so if I inherit from those, it's gonna be slightly different, the tree there. So I think it's probably better to inherit from the from VBox and then remove this stuff here. Yeah, that makes more sense. Now the only thing that I have here is minimum size. So I'm gonna inherit from the from VBox. Also gonna try to comment this. Oh, but the problem is the macro. So the first thing to do inside of the thing there is to figure out how to set minimum size. I'm looking here, so set custom minimum size is gonna be on the control node. That's vector 2. I wonder if I can just pass without initializing. And just I'm gonna get the thing there. So core math vector 2 h core math vector. Yeah, so now, so this is gonna be the first one, then initialize the label, option name, plus menu, label, name. Hey man, what's up? Yeah, so the text is gonna be the beginning. I don't think I need to. I'm trying to remember if I. Oh, so this container is sizing. Oh, was something. I was on the horizontal alignments, but I think the default is the left probably, so I don't have to do anything. I'm just gonna leave like that, and then I have to add this as a child. So add child option name, and this is the add child from the nodes. Because if I remember correctly, the control is gonna inherit from nodes. Yeah. Now I add that other one. HBox. Maybe you just put slider container. It's better. So here, so it's easier to not set anything, but I think I have to set the minimum thing here. Oh, the minimum size comes from this stuff. Oh. So I think I don't need to set minimum size. Just, yeah, probably don't need to set anything as well. So I think the only ones that I have to change are the slider and the value. So this I add child as well. So that's and then I create the other one and then add the child. So let me think. I think that's this. So I'm gonna see some examples because I don't remember which one. So let me do first, then I'll look into the examples. So the slider and the slider value label. And the slider is the one that I need to set things first. So here I'm gonna have a function, then I'm gonna connect. So obviously I'm gonna add this shoe as a child of this, and then I think I have to do it on the order there. This is something I'm not sure, so I'm just gonna see if it works. But I assume that's how it works. Like the order of the values here is based on whichever one gets added first. So I don't understand very well this relationship between. But I guess I can just look at the functions in the HBox container, and then it's probably gonna be like I'm gonna be able to figure out based on the functions there. Because I think that they're gonna be probably doing something like similar to graph first search. So it's just from left to right, and then based on that functionality, they figure out how to structure the elements. Right, probably, and then for the vertical, it's probably that first search on the children. So let me. So the thing that I wanna clarify is how do they do it here? Because do they usually update the values? Because I know there's a difference when you're saving the scenes. You need to first add the node, I think, and then you change the values. So if you have a node, then you add a child to the node, and then if you have a node, then you set the owner of the node, and then you add as a child of the owner. Then it doesn't write to the sync file as a child. If you set it before after you add the child. So if you set the owner after you add it as a child, then it saves on the file. So I think the order matters in which you do stuff. But I don't remember really well how they do it here. But I think that's probably how they always add first, and then after they add, they change. I guess maybe it's the way that I was doing there, but I think I was doing the same way. So like creating a pointer and then allocate it on the heap, and it still wasn't because then like the memory is supposedly the same because it's just passing a pointer, but still I think there's a problem. Yes, I think that's how they usually do it. So they add as a child first, then they set the values. So I have to find one that is a child of the child. And so here it adds. It adds first, then it does everything. So yeah, that's how I'm gonna do it. So just adds slider container, adds child slider. And then here I just look into the editor there to see how does it change the values. So yeah, it has a minimal value. It's gonna be set min value. We're just gonna go to the slider. It's probably is on the range. I already looked into this. Sets. So it's just gonna be set min. It's when it doesn't. I think that's all, and I have to set the minimum thing. So the minimum is probably gonna be the same way that this is set, because it's on the same class, I think. Just call this. Yes, under 50. Here's one. So it probably should be the other way around. It doesn't matter that much. But I think that I have to set the value of the range because otherwise it just collapses. But obviously, it makes more sense for the outer one should be higher, obviously. So obviously I can just test this. I can make it based on the values that I pass here as well. But I think that's probably not a good idea because I don't see a reason, like, it's just for visualizing the range. So maybe it does make sense. Like if you have values that are bigger, you make it bigger. But it's not that hard to change. So if I want to do that, I do it later. I'm gonna put 180 here and 150 here because it's 150 there. It probably is a little bigger is better. Just 180. We're gonna put 175. Yeah. And put this 190. So I think that's all the values that I have to change there. There's these other ones that I think they change how it scales when you change the range. So I have this tab, which is how many values I think it increases or decreases. And then you have this exponential thing there. I don't remember, so I can test this later, but yeah, I'm not gonna worry about this stuff now. The thing is that there's so many things to focus on, so only wanna think about this now if I think that it might fuck me up later, based on all the other stuff. Like this is the hard part is like thinking about how it's gonna connect with everything else. That's the thing that I'm kind of concerned because I wanna achieve the same thing that I was doing here. So the way that I'm thinking about this, like for the file system, which is gonna be the thing that's I'm gonna put the physics thing on. So it's gonna be this component here. I'm gonna try to copy from the editor. So just see how they do this resizing. And then I need to add, as far as I understand, the split is there's a, I think it's H split or V split. And you put some other nodes. So you put one node, which is probably going to be vertical, whatever, or at the VBox container. So it's two VBox containers, and then in the middle of them, there's this H thing. But then the problem is that for each icon that I'm going to put here, I'm going to have to put the functionality to change. But I think it's probably not that difficult. You just change the classes based on the signal. Yeah, so it's easier to just build everything first. It's probably not going to be that hard to change later. So I think that's all that I need for the slider. So minimum, maximum, current value, and the minimum size. And then this one is going to be the only one that's I'm going to have to think. Just going to depend on the, I think it's going to be this is the part that I was trying to think about. So it's going to be set text, I think, and then you pass a string, but I have to convert the value to a string. So I have to see how to do that. Let me see if there's just custom minimum size. So if I put this to 0, I changed the value of this slider. That's weird. So I think I'm just gonna leave without anything, without minimum. So one thing that I have to search is if there's a way to put a maximum value. But I think it doesn't matter that much because the point of the thing is gonna be to be resizable anyway. And the values are not gonna be. So the component that ChatGPT recommended was line edit instead of the label. Because I asked it how to make something that is similar to the input on the browser. And maybe this is better. But I guess if I want that, I can just do another class and then put another variation. Yeah, that's probably the way to go. Because the input would be nice if you wanna put a specific value without moving the slider, obviously. But I think it's not that big of a deal either way. I'm not even sure if I'm just gonna do this. I'm gonna do it as a component and then I might do something else later. So I'm not even sure if I'm gonna use this. So yeah, but it's good to have. So yeah, I think I'm just gonna leave it like this. So it's just gonna be the default values, I think. Yeah, default values, and then so after it's gonna be set text, and it's gonna be on the label. So this one I had as a child. The question is what is gonna happen when I put. I think on the editor it's just gonna use the default values. So yeah, so I think that's fine. And obviously I'm not gonna use this outside of the elements. I'm just gonna, and maybe I do use outside, but it doesn't matter because I have the default values. It's gonna be slider, label. So now I have to see how to convert. So it accepts a string. I guess I can try that to see what happens. I'm gonna try string slider value. I think it's pretty much it. No, this is, hey man, this is Godot. So I think that's pretty much it. The only reason why the editor puts the destructor, I think, is because they allocate memory. So maybe I should delete the elements that I have there. I'm gonna delete everything that I allocate there. So I'm just making sure that I set everything there. So it's gonna be minimum size for the VBox first. Then I set the label name with the name that is passed here. So maybe this one I should put one as a default. So I'm gonna look into the constructor of this. I should put a default label, I think. So I think if I just pass as a string like this, yeah, this is probably fine. Because I can see a way to do this because I'm gonna depend on the data on the because this component is not necessarily gonna be from for the physics thing, so it's gonna depend on how you structure the class you're gonna use this as part of, I think. So the options are gonna depend on the member variables, I think. Member variables. So I'm just gonna leave it like this, and I'm gonna see. I'm gonna see if I can compile. So I'm setting as option first, then I add as a child of the VBox, then I create the HBox container. Oh, the HBox doesn't have anything. I think it's just the default values. Maybe this stuff here. Yeah, so I think it doesn't matter if I leave as the defaults. Then I create a slider, add as a child of the HBox, then I set the values, the minimum size, create a label, and set. Oh yeah, the connects. So I have to slider value label connects. So I have to create another function, and I think it's value changed the signal. So let me. Oh, it's on this slider. So how did I look at this? The problem is that the tutorials are from GDScript. So I think that the tutorials they usually say value changed. So I need to figure out what event happens, what signal is emitted when the value is changed there. So I'm just gonna ask ChatGPT, but so as the value changes, I'm gonna subscribe. I have to create a function, so it's gonna be callable MP, then I set. So it's just gonna be slider value label. So I think I can bind. So either I can create another function on the physics slider and then change based on that, or I can bind based on the. But if I bind, it doesn't make sense because I'm not really sure if I can bind. I think when you bind, it's only at the moment you bind that the value is gonna be, so it's gonna be fixed. I can't bind based on the whatever value the slider has. So I think it makes more sense to create another function and then just use the thing. So I'm gonna create another function, then set the value of the tags based on the, just basically call this. So maybe here I use that function instead as well. So I'm gonna create another function here. So it's probably gonna be on a get value or something. Yeah, I think it's get value. Maybe not. Get value. Object callable method pointer. I forgot the return value, so it's gonna be void, I think. So it's easier to build stuff. I've looked for examples, but I couldn't find anyone that doesn't use GDScript. So this is the issue. So instead of having to build the tree each time, it makes a lot more sense to just build the slider and then I use the same, like the custom one that already has the layout. And it simplifies the tree. So it's a relationship between composition and object-oriented approach. It's a funnel of information. So I think that's probably... So I have to see the events. So. Signal is emitted when the value of a slider changes. Yeah, value changed, so... Let me think about this. Actually, I think I need to connect the slider. Because the slider is the thing that's going to emit, so this probably has to be on the slider. So when the slider emits the value change, it's going to call this function here from the slider. Actually, it has to be from the physics. It should be from this, because the function is from the thing. So when the slider changes the value, it's going to call this function from the physics slider class, which is going to set the value of the label to the value of the slider based on the... It's going to convert to a string, then it sets the label based on the value. So every time I change it there, it's going to reflect the value. So I think this pretty much it. So yeah, I'm gonna try to compile and see what happens. So if it works, so I'm just gonna do it, keep doing this until I get the component there. So if it works, I'm going to open uh, from the editor and then just replace the stuff that I had with the custom component. And then after that, I just use the custom component to build the next level, I think. So obviously it didn't work. So maybe I can't forward declare, or maybe it's because I didn't. I'm pretty sure I did here. So I'm just gonna have to put there, I think. It's always better to avoid doing this if you can. I'm not really sure if it's gonna fix, maybe it's another error. But it's better to forward declare stuff because of the way C++ works. So this avoids the issue when you include header files is that the check here only prevents the header from being included on the same translation unit. But if you have different translation units, then it doesn't prevent. That's the issue. So if I include the header here, it might fuck it up. Or maybe I'm doing something else wrong. I was probably complaining about this. I'm just gonna try again, see what happens. And identifier not found. It's probably because of the thing there. So I think because it's like it's from the class inheritance, for some reason it doesn't allow me. But it's weird because on the editor nodes they don't, yeah, they don't forward declare the nodes. They only forward declare the nodes through the, I think. So I think it probably does make sense. Oh, it's because I have the editor opened. I have to close this. The big question about this, maybe I should have tests. I should test this before. Is just like create other V boxes and H boxes and then put this stuff inside of those boxes. Just see if it fucks it up the slider. Nice, works. I shouldn't speak too soon. I remember some time that I thought it was gonna work and then later it fucked it up there. And I think I'm probably gonna do a different design, like I said. So I'm not gonna. I think I'm gonna forget. It's kind of hard because I already forgot how I did the part on the front end there. I'm not pretty sure if it's gonna be worth it to try to translate from the front end to this stuff because obviously it's gonna be different because I'm using React there on the front end. So I forgot the logic to update this stuff. That's the problem. So yeah, I'm gonna have to. I think I'm just gonna forget about this stuff because of the camera as well. So, like for each thing, I'm gonna have to relearn how the thing works on the on Godot, because obviously gonna be different. So I'm gonna learn how each thing works first, then I'm gonna incorporate, and I'm gonna do it on the site here. So I think I'm just gonna forget about this stuff. The only thing that I'm gonna copy is gonna be the. Also, I think I'm not gonna use the other solvers because the most useful the most useful one is the bind set. So I did these other ones based on the VGS stuff, but I find that I never use them. The other stuff is the layouts, but then for the layouts it's gonna be like annoying because I was using a library, I think. So I'm gonna have to figure out anyway. So I think it's probably better to just leave the. The other annoying thing is the events. So I'm gonna have to see. At first, I have to understand how the events work on Godot. I guess this is the part that I'm kind of confused by is like which part should I do first? I think I should just build the physics with these components because it's easier, and I'm gonna these are the main components that are gonna change the bind set simulation. So I think those are the first ones. Then after I build that, then I think it's better to just like create another game or another project there, and then just study how to. The question is what is the best way to study how the dragging of nodes work, for example. So how the events work, basically in the context of like manipulating a game or something. Like, yeah. So someone's asking what is this, and this is just a graph that I did some time ago to visualize an abstract syntax tree in Python. So it's basically a file in Python from a project that I created some, I think, script, and I got the abstract syntax tree from that because I was studying C Python, which is the main Python implementation. And then Yeah, I did this for one of the files, and this is basically like this GUI element changes the visualization here, and here you can change the camera as well. And here, yeah, another thing is I'm thinking about. I'm gonna try to. I'm not sure if I'm gonna go this way, but I'm gonna have to think about layouts and probably how. So on Godot, you can use the animation player, I think, node, and the animation player allows you to create animations basically. So instead of doing the transition like this, because I did like this because it's just too hard to do the animations without any libraries on the front end. I think that's the last part that I stopped. Is I used, if I remember correctly, I think Twing library or something like that to create animation. So this was the last part that I stopped, I think. But I didn't. Oh yeah, it's because I commented out the code, but I had an animation. Another thing here is an animation player that when you click play would change the color of the nodes. That's another thing. So I have to remember how this stuff work first. Like maybe the best, I think probably the best way to go about this is just forget about everything and just like, so the physics in the beginning, physics component is just gonna be, I'm just gonna probably loop over on the constructor on this slider that I created here to, yeah, then based on the member variables of the physics component, I'm going to create different sliders with different values, default values here. The question is how to connect this stuff with the, yeah, this is the part that is kind of confusing. So the question is how to connect this with the graph components. And the other thing that I realized is that I'm not gonna, so initially I was thinking about creating the graph component separated from the nodes of the graph. So I create the graphs outside on the headless code, and then I push them into the graph. But now I think it makes a lot more sense to do everything as part of the graph node because of the way that you save scenes. So like I think that the scene is not meant to have a bunch of different nodes. So if the amount of nodes you have scales a lot, you need to make that part of a custom class and then incorporate this stuff on the class. So I think this is the part that I'm going to see now. So what happens when you have the custom node there? If it's going to show, I think it doesn't show these values here. It's just going to show in the inspector there because the inspector reflects the member variables. So the inspector shows the class hierarchy, and then for each class hierarchy, it's going to have the member variables. So I think on the top there is going to show the values of these things here, which is probably going to be a selector. So it doesn't show the values, obviously, I think, on the left side. So that's probably what I'm going to do. But this is another thing I'm not really sure if it's going to, like how it's going to work. I guess I have the only ways to test, but it should probably work because I've seen some examples where people put a bunch of nodes for different stuff. But the thing is that they do it from the, and this is the part that I'm gonna have to see. They do it from GDScript, so that's the reason why I think I have to. I was thinking about. I spent a lot of time thinking about changing the object class so that I can incorporate composition from C++. But basically, that's what GD extension does. So it's a class that is a member variable of the object, and then allows you, it works as a bridge between, so it allows you to basically run scripting functionality in a similar way that the GDScript works, and is better than modules, I think, for this kind of stuff. So I have to try GD extension first, and if it doesn't work, or extensions first, if it doesn't work, then I think about changing the object class. And then I'm probably gonna test to see. So first, the first part is just gonna be based on random nodes. So yeah, the way that I'm thinking about now. So I'm probably gonna have to create the notification function, the graph class. Then when the nodes on the first event that I think it's gonna be on when the node is created or something, I have to see what kind of event it is. Then I call a function that's gonna spawn a bunch of random nodes. And then I have to search for the other values, but I think the other values are gonna be easy because I wrote down there the meshes that I need. It's just going to be mesh instances 3D, and I'm going to change the values of the only thing that's going to change between them is the values of each one of them. And then based on that, this part's kind of annoying as well because of the edges. So like I'm gonna have to at first do the random calculation of like get the position of source and target to create the edge, and then change the values of the member variables of the mesh that is a tube geometry, I think, to create the mesh to create the edge. So initialize that stuff first, and then on the physics notification, then I run the solver, I think. So I'm gonna have to test first. Maybe before I do everything, it's better to just like do a normal loop and then put a bunch of meshes, I think. And then on the graph destructor, which is another thing that I wrote down there, I have to disconnect the events, the global events. And this is something that I was thinking about as well, is whether or not it's worth it to create something on the global signals class that disconnects events based on whether or not the object was destructed. So inside of the emit function, the global signal, or yeah, inside of the emit function, it already checks, because I copied from the other logic for the normal signal, it already checks to see if the object, if the callable exists, I think, or if the callable is valid, which basically probably checks if the object exists, I think. And if it doesn't, it continues. It just skips, and there's a comment there that says that this is by design. So the problem is that if I don't disconnect the things, then even though the object that connected to the event was destructed, the event is still going to be there, which might be a memory leak. But the problem is that it might be beneficial to do this because, let's say I want the event to be connected regardless of what scene it is or something like that. But I'm not really sure. I might change this in the future, and then I figure out that what I can do is just loop over the callables and then check to see if the callable has an object still. So you can get the object from the callable. There's a function for this, and then you check to see if the object exists or doesn't. So in that situation there on the mid signal, I can call the disconnect function, and then I can change the functionality of the disconnect function to filter the objects based on whether or not they exist, or to check as it's looping over the objects, and then delete them if they don't, remove them. But I'm not really sure if I'm gonna do that. So let me. So what I was gonna see is if I add here. So. So for some reason it's not showing there. I think maybe I have to set the name of the node. Yeah, it's not that. Oh, it didn't register. That's the problem. So I have to register on the types here. I think it's probably better to set the events on the physics components and not on the slider. So the slider works only as a bridge. So so on the physics component, I'm going to create the slider in the same way that I'm creating here. So just going to be memu on the constructor, and then I create the sliders based on the variables of the components. Then after I add them as a child, I just connect the events. So I can connect a normal signal, and then on the inside of the function, I just connect the global. But yeah, it's probably better to connect the global signal on the physics component. Then subscribe on this function that is going to be the callback for the global signal. it emits the, yeah, so I'm gonna collect base is basically gonna be the same. So I initialize the physics slider, then I access the slider of the physics slider. But then, like, let me think about this. Because it might be better to just put inside of the physics. Yeah, but if I put inside of the physics slider, yeah, I think it doesn't make a lot of sense because it depends. Yeah, it makes more sense to put to emit the signal from the parent of the slider. Because if I put the functionality here, for example, to emit the global signal that is going to change the physics of the graph, then it couples the component with the graph, and that's not very good. So I think it makes more sense to outside connect again to the. So from the other component, I access the slider and connect to the value changed, and then I call another function that emits the signal, the global signal to the graph. That's what I'm gonna do. So if it works there, then I think I'm gonna delete the other stuff, and I'm going to create another. It's probably gonna be vertical. As vertical slides, a vertical box. Then puts. Then it's gonna depend. Actually, like it's not gonna be. The only thing I'm gonna have. Yeah, so put the VBox, then the label of the components. Because this stuff, like I said, I'm gonna have to think about later. Because in order to make this other stuff work here, I'm gonna have to think about a bunch of other things, I think. So the question is, what is the best way to learn how to move everything so that I can build the component later? So like, maybe it is better to. So after I do this, I create another component and then I put these values here. And then I learn how to change the visualization. I have to think about how I'm gonna do this. So there's something that it was wrong there because it is. So there's probably a memory leak somewhere. Or something like a dangling pointer or something like that. Because it closed the thing automatically. So the thing that I was thinking about is the camera. So like it probably makes more sense to put the camera in the same level. So like create the camera from outside and then initialize the elements. So it closed there. So initialize the elements here by passing the camera. So through dependency injection. Not sure if that makes sense. So what is going on? Might be because of these values here. So I guess I can test, just and just remove the values, the default values, or add another constructor without the defaults. Or maybe I have to bind the methods. I think I have to do this, but I don't think this is the reason why it's not working there. Something else. Guys, I can go over with the debugger. Just see what is happening. Maybe it is this stuff here. Because I think that the thing is, I remember seeing that the tree deletes the memory for nodes automatically, but I do think that, yeah. So the destructor of the editor node is probably deleting stuff that is not inside of the tree. So maybe I should delete the function there. It might be the reason. I think this stuff here is probably things that are not directly on the tree. So that's the next thing that I'm gonna try. And it makes more sense to. I'm just gonna build this stuff. The question is like, because I don't think it makes more sense to build the thing first. I'm gonna next thing. So probably I'm gonna build another class that is generic customization or something like that. And then I put this stuff there. So search is very useful. Yeah, the thing is I'm gonna have to connect, I think. So like I have to create another class. There's gonna be a parents of both for this, and then I put generic customization. So this is the question, is like how to hide this stuff. I'm not really sure if hide is the right thing. Hmm. So I think I'm gonna do it without the camera first. It's easier. I just put this. So maybe I don't need to. I just make one class and then I make the whatever shows up here as a child of the main class. And this is just going to be the member variables of that class that has this one as a child. So the thing that I have to figure out is how to switch the stuff that shows up here based on the current class. So I make the default physics. So the way that I'm imagining is going to be based on the V thing there. But like this is the other things that's, but maybe there's a configuration for the V so that everything stays on the top, let's say, and doesn't shrink or decrease. So the same way that I'm doing there horizontally. So I put the generic stuff on top, and then on the constructor, I make this one as the default. And then I set an event probably. Yeah, so I'm gonna have the options. The options is gonna, so I have to see the selection box first. Then based on the selection box, I change when it changes the value, I create a function that changes. So deletes the memory for the physics and then um, builds the new option based on the string. I can do it based on a switch, I think. Yeah. So I think it is worth to do that before and then try to think if there's because these options are not this one is connected to the graph, but I think it's not gonna be that hard because you just emit a signal, I think. But for this one, it would be easier if I had access to the graph. That's the thing. Because like I can do a function there that's based on whatever you put on the inputs. It's probably going to be a line edit. So whatever you type there, it sends a signal to the graph. Then with the string that was typed, then based on that signal, the graph filters the nodes and then changes the properties on the mesh based on that. But obviously it's easier if the component has access to the graph directly, because then every time you type, you can change the graph directly. But I think I'm not really sure if that's possible or not. I think it isn't. Because it doesn't make sense to neither make a member variable or initialize based on dependency injection. I think neither of these things make a lot of sense. Hey man, what's up? I'm good, man. And you? So there's something wrong here. Not really sure what it is. I'm trying to build the components to uh, slider, custom slider. Oh, so it did open, but okay, so it did open. Can't add edge slider to each box container. Huh, interesting. Oh, so maybe I messed up the names here. Oh, but this is supposed to be VBox. It's supposed to be HBox. Oh, I messed it up here. Oh, let me think. Oh, this is like I am initializing like this. Then I'm adding as a child of the VBox. Yeah, but this is kind of annoying. Can't add child H slider to HBox container. That's why. Not sure if that makes sense. So I don't understand the error there. It's complaining because of the slider, I think. So like can't add H slider. Can't add child H slider to HBox container. Already has parent HBox container. It's complaining it can't add child here. And already has parents. And this is supposed to be child of the VBox. Also, I should add the label first. Oh, but I did. So I add the label. Then I add the HBox, which is supposed to be this. So add the label, add the HBox. Then I add the slider to the HBox. It seems correct to me. So it might be because of the name, but it doesn't make sense because. And this is another thing that I thought that it wouldn't work like this, but now I have to think about. Because I thought that it only would keep track of the names. Yeah, but I think it does make sense. I thought that you would only keep track of the names based on whatever nodes is gonna directly save on the scene file. But I think based on the error there, it tracks the names for everything. So every time that I create a class, I have to remember to create a unique name for the class. Because that's the way it works there. Which is kind of annoying to think about. I think on this class I'm gonna have to create a static variable, and I'm gonna have to keep track of. So I create static ID, for example, for each one, and then I increase the ID count every time after setting the name first. So I set the name of everything based on that ID, so that it is all the classes created are related to that. So I can use the components and create from code without having problems. But I don't understand why I'm getting that error there. So what I can, so let me. Let me see if I can find physics slider. So yeah, it's a problem with the constructor, but I don't understand why. Can't add child age slider to age box. Already has parent age box. That doesn't make any sense. And it doesn't have the value there on the label. So maybe I messed it up on the label. Slider value label. Oh, I'm adding as a child of this slider, so I think that's the problem. So that's one problem, probably. But the other problem, I'm not really sure if it's the same. It's only gonna allow me to change when I initialize the thing. So it should be setting here. Slider container. Translate. I think that was the error probably. I'm just gonna. So the weird thing is that it's not setting the text, so there might be an error with the way that I'm setting the text there to convert the double into the string. So basically this stuff here. It's very confusing. But I think now it should be correct. So I have the slider container, which is the H box. This one is the V box that I have there. So this one is the parent. So the first thing is setting minimum size, then I set the label, which is the name of the thing. Then I initialize the H box container and as a child of the V box. So this is going to be below this one. Then I initialize the slider and I add as a child of the container, the H box container, and set the values. Initialize the label and set as a child of the H box. And here is supposed to set the value of the label, slider value label, based on the slider value which was set here, based on this. So this should mean that the initial label there should be 50, I think. And then I connect the signal to every time that it changes the label as well. So I think it should be working. So if it doesn't work, I'm probably gonna go with the debugger and see what happens on the inside of this function here. I guess if probably the easiest way, if it doesn't work, is to try to see if there's another node that is easier to convert numbers into string. Maybe I'll try line edit instead of the label there. It's taking a long ass time, so I'm not really sure if it's because of the nodes that I added or if it's just because of OBS. I'm gonna remove this from here. Yeah, I'm not really sure. Maybe there's something wrong. It's kind of annoying as well. It's just the size. How do I change the position? So here. Yeah. Physics slider. So now it works. Nice. And it has the 50 there. So now let me change the value here. So this is the problem. It doesn't have the... So the inspector doesn't show the values of the classes. So let me think about this. I thought you would show the values as member variables of this class, but it's not showing there. So I'm just gonna, I'll think about this. So like one thing that I can do is just just figure out the code that they use there. It's probably because, yeah, I think you have to assign the properties. So I think I know what is the issue. So, but I'm not 100% sure. So I can look into the code here for the other classes and see what they do. But I remember that the engine uses that property macro to add stuff. So I think the issue is that it's only gonna be able to access this stuff from the class that you subscribe to class DB, and you have to subscribe as properties. So when you use that macro, it's just gonna convert based on some code that they have there to. There are some functions across the editor that I remember seeing as you're stepping over. That's like they usually create a list of property info outside, and they call a function from the object that gets that converts all the properties of the object into property info and then puts on the list. And they use this stuff to convert. So when you click add child, for example, add child node, that's what's happening. They are using this function. So first they use class DB instantiate, I think. That creates the class based on the string that is the name of the stuff you have there. Then after they do that, they call another function, I think it's from object DB or something, that accepts the class, and based on the class, it's going to convert everything to property info based on the properties of the class. And I think that they use that to register into class DB, I think. So if I want the properties to show the member variables, which are these values here, I think I have to call this add property. So it's not showing here. So there's an error. Signal value change callable. Oh, so called with spec 0 arguments, but called with. So I guess this value change is gonna send the value. So how can I figure that? So I guess I can search for it here. So emit signal is usually gonna be on a macro, I think. Yeah, s name. Value changed. So here. So it sends this value. So is it gonna be a double? I guess I can make it based on this value, but I think, yeah, So I'm not really sure what makes more sense. So maybe these values, like the downside of connecting this or putting this value here is that it's gonna be, it might be like desynchronized, but I think it's more efficient because if you get the value, then like spending one more function, it's probably more effective to just put the value, but obviously it's gonna be the same because the slider is the member variable there. So I think that's probably easier. So here just have to put the name. It doesn't have to be the same name, I think, but I prefer to put the same. And I have to change here. So I'm gonna try this stuff, and if it doesn't work, then either way, I'm just gonna stop streaming after this. But probably it's gonna work, I think. So after I make this, I'm just gonna create another class, and then I'm gonna loop over. So I'm gonna create member variables on that class, and I'm gonna, based on the member variables, so I have to see what is the best way to put this. I probably on a vector of string names, I put the options that the physics has. So I have to create two different classes. One is going to be to encapsulate the physics options. The other one is going to be to encapsulate all the possible options along with the generic ones. So on the physics options class, it's probably going to be physics, either options or customization. So after I create that class, oh yeah, so I have to send this value, slider value. And so on that class, I think it's probably going to be a vector of string names, and then the vector is going to be the options. Actually not, it's going to be the struct. So the struct has the options. So maybe yeah, but it's not really a hash, so. Because I created the struct there. Also, I fixed the error that I was getting to pass. So this now receives an object, and it's going to be basically this thing here. And I also figure out how to do that on the extension. You just put size of and the name of the struct to align the values there on the GD extension if you want to do the custom variant thing. But I deleted all the code that I did there, but I saw that it works basically. So here, what I'm thinking is like the options of the physics are going to be basically connected to this, but obviously this is a struct and not a hash. So I was thinking about initially should just loop over a hash, but then I remember that is a struct. So the question I have is, I think it doesn't matter that much if I hard code the options on the customization thing. But ideally, I think I have to figure out a way to do it based on the member variables here. So yeah, the options reflect the member variables of these structs. Or the other, and this brings me to the question like, how should I do this? Because I think I'm using this. Yeah, for now I'm using on the custom button because I did a custom button just to see how it would work. So I initialize on the class here, and I think because of the I'm allocating memory, and this is like the compromise that I accepted. So in the other way that I was doing, I think I wouldn't have to allocate memory because I wasn't doing it based on the object. But since I'm inheriting from the object now to be able to send the information through the signals, because the signals use callable, which uses variant. So to send information through the variants, I inheriting from object on the struct, which means I have to allocate memory, I think. So so this is the problem, is because I think that the way that I did there is easier to initialize if I put on both sides of the thing. Yeah, here I also have. So if I change the member variables to a hash, I think it would be more annoying to initialize, I think. So the question is how can I guess I can just build, I can hard code on this one, the names of the, you can put a hash stat or something, or a vector. That's probably not that big of a deal. So just hard code on this one, the name of the options here. And then based on this, on the customization thing, I just loop over and then I create the values based on that. So I loop over that thing on the options, on the main components, and then for each one I initialize a physics slider, passing the values that I have here. I think I'm just gonna hard, yeah, but this is the thing, is because, yeah, I think I need to change this thing because I'm gonna have to pass the values along with each thing. I need the values of the constructor here. So I need to change the information here to reflect whatever values I have to pass here. So I forgot about this because here I also didn't put, I just put the default values, but I didn't put the minimum and maximum. So I'm gonna have to think about, so I'll probably have to restructure this in some way. I'm gonna write down here. Nice. It was working. Okay, so yeah, pretty happy about this. Yeah, now, so I'm gonna stop streaming here. Probably tomorrow I'm going to, the next thing that we're gonna do is just gonna do another class there. Like I said, so I'm gonna create another thing. Maybe I'll do folders as well. I think I'm probably gonna have to create a folder because, yeah, so I'm gonna, yeah, what I'm gonna do is just look for the folder on the front end project, and then I'm gonna copy the structure that I have there and just change the names. So the next thing to do is to think about how to restructure the information here. So I'm gonna probably have to change the, I think I'm not gonna change the information that I'm passing here, but I'm going to change the structure. So I'm probably gonna define a constructor instead of using initialization lists. And then I'm gonna use another data structure to encode. I think I'm gonna look for the front end. So the front end, if I remember correctly, but it was kind of complicated as well. So maybe I will think about an easier way. But I think I was using object where the key was the option and then the value was a list. Maybe I will look. I'm gonna look into this now to remember, and then I'll stop streaming. So it's basically, I think yeah, I was looking into this sometime before to do other stuff. But I think it was this component here. So I basically did it like this. So I have this object here. The object has the categories, which are the main thing that shows there. Then each one is yeah, it's gonna contain the keys. So this is for the solvers. Yeah. So I think for, yeah, for the options is another object. So it's kind of like a nested object. because you can think about a component as an object with functions. So it's basically an nested object. So I think it could be more simple than this, but maybe it's going to be the same because this will be the same as the stuff that I'm doing there. Like the classes are just going to reflect the components, I think, from React. So it's probably going to be the same stuff. So and then based on the only difference is the state, how it's going to update the state. So here I was doing based on this. And then on the selection here, I change on these functions, I change the value of the current option, I think. The current option, yeah, is the string that I use. But true. Yeah, so the string here reflects the object here. And then the selection changes the string, which changes the component that is displaying there. That's how I did it. And then on each one, I have this object that is basically the same pattern, I think. So somewhere there, I'm using physics to display this stuff. Yeah, here. So I map over the solver, which has all the options there, and then each option I use. So I think on that situation, the custom input would be the physics slider that I'm creating. So I think that's how I'm doing. Yeah, so that's probably what I'm gonna do on the thing there. So I'm on the barn set struct there. I'm probably gonna do something like this, but yeah, like I said, I'm not gonna use the other solvers. So it's probably gonna be just one dictionary, or just yeah, just the same dictionary, but so I am going to copy basically. So yeah, I have to think about if there is an easier way to do this, then yeah, I'm gonna spend time thinking about if there is an easier way. So just do maybe one hash or something else. But I think the barn set is gonna be basically this. It's gonna hold this information here. So probably I do have to create like several different hash maps, each one for each option, and then put this stuff here. And then on the other component that is gonna initialize the physics component, I just access from the barn set the values, and then I pass the values. The default value is gonna be the one that I have there, then the minimum, maximum. And this step I think I can also change there because I'm pretty sure that I can based on the slider. So I think once I'm gonna wait for when I have both the physics and the generic custom thing to start connecting this stuff with the actual graph, because the graph is gonna be more annoying. But I've been like, there has been a long time since I've been thinking about like the most annoying part is gonna be to convert the barn set solver from JavaScript to C++. Because I remember I spent a bunch of time trying to understand on here, and I got from someone else. And then I did some modifications to make it work on my stuff, my situation. So in order to translate, I think, and I remember seeing if I could translate or not. And I remember that I thought that it might be annoying to do that. So maybe I'll do that first because it is more annoying just to get over with. Yeah, but basically it's gonna be so I'm just gonna replace instead of doing the loop here, I'm gonna figure out how to do the barn set here. And I was thinking about this as well, to change this from barn set solver to just solver and then put the functions somewhere else. But I think I'm not gonna do that. Probably because I'm not really sure. Like I don't know if I'm just creating the structure now, and then I'll think about what I'm gonna do with this structure later. So I'm not really sure if I'm gonna use barn set or some other types of things. But I think it's probably better to create the custom components first. So create the physics first, then generic customization components. Then I focus on the camera and the events. Probably camera events is more important to figure out before this stuff. Yeah, but if I do, so maybe I think generic. It's probably better to just focus on creating the graph first because I need to figure out how to create the meshes, the 3D meshes. I also need to remember the names, change the names. So I'm probably gonna do the static variable thing. So let me see what I have here. So before I do this stuff here, before I focus on the other ones, I think it's probably better because it's something I have been thinking about a lot, and I just wanna get it out of my mind. So just implement because I know it's gonna be annoying. So the most annoying part is to figure out or to remember because the annoying thing about the edges is figuring out the like when you have a curved edge, you need to get control points and then the calculation to do those things and then update the position of the mesh each time that the nodes change on the visualization is very annoying. I have a bunch of things there on the other project, and probably what I'm going to try to do is convert, but the issue is that a bunch of those functions use libraries, so I'm going to have to see if I convert or if I figure out a different way. So I think I want to get this out of my mind first. So probably to do that is probably better. So I think finishing the physics first, physics components. Yeah. So finish physics customization components based on Barnes facts. So after I finish the physics, then create function on graph class to add random nodes. I'm probably gonna do separately, I think. So I'm gonna create another header file, and then I'm gonna put so like the graph file is not too crowded with stuff. But then obviously I'm gonna have to, if I do that, I have to I have to create arguments, accept this stuff as arguments on the functions to calculate everything instead of doing from the member variables. So and that's probably what I'm gonna do. But I'm not really sure if it's worth it because of C++, and not only because of C++, just because of because it works like this on other languages as well, just hidden from you. But like if you have to pass as an argument, I think that becomes annoying because of the references and might be more effective to just do it from the class and easier to implement. So I might do it from the class because of that. But I basically have to translate the functions. The most annoying thing is the arrow position. So both the arrow and I have to see because I remember that on the front end, if you add either the edges first or last, like the order in which you add matters because then it gets exposed inside of the node, and obviously you don't want that. So you want the node always to cover the edge, because the edge always goes to the center of the node, but you don't want it to show from the sphere. So, and calculating the arrow position based on that is kind of annoying because you have to put the offset as well. So that part is very annoying. I'm gonna get that over with. I think that I should do this first. Yeah, then after this, I have to figure out the how the events work on the visualization. Yeah, I have to figure this out. And I probably, yeah. So on this stuff, I'm gonna have to set on the graph. So I have to figure out, so probably what I'm gonna have to do is implement notification function on the graph, and I'm gonna have to implement the functions related to inputs. So the graph, I think, is a control node as well. I don't remember, but it's pretty sure that I'm inheriting from node 3D. Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, now I'm not 3D. No, I think it does make sense for the graph to be node 3D because it's like part of the visualization. So, but if it is node 3D, then I don't think I'm gonna have access to the functions. This is kind of annoying. Yeah, but there should be a way. I think this part's not gonna be that hard because I think it's something very common to do. Like for games, you have the players, so it's, like the graph is kind of like the player. I can view it like that, and then just yeah, because it's probably gonna be based on the camera node. But obviously, I don't want to make the camera parts of the graph, so I have to see how to connect. The event's gonna be on the mesh, I think, the meshes. So I have to figure out how to get the mouse from the mesh. So basically, raycasting or like how does I have to think about how to formulate this question. Other people usually maybe just dragging. Yeah, I'm gonna search for dragging, and I think this part's not gonna be that hard. Implementing is very annoying, so but I don't think it's gonna be hard. So once I'm done with all this functionality on the graph class, sure, and clarify the camera, then I think it makes more sense to continue to build the thing because obviously it's gonna be easier. And this stuff here, I'm gonna have to think about like, because probably I'm gonna have to connect global signals. I think this is gonna be better. I think for the meshes, probably not because it makes more sense for them to emit the signal to the graph, and then the graph. Yeah, I have to see, obviously. So yeah, we'll see. So I'm gonna stop here. Next time I'm gonna continue to do this stuff here, the order that I said. So see you then.